some serious beef with this next book. I want the man to suffer. I want the man to want her so badly. Oh my god. Oh my freaking goodness. Oh my god. This year I have been desperately trying to claw myself out of the most vicious book slump I have ever been in. I've been trying to focus a little bit less on quantity and focus more on quality. And because of that, I have not read nearly as many books as I had read this time last year. But I can finally feel myself coming out on the other side. I can finally feel myself coming out of the book slump, getting back to what I love about reading. So we're going to talk about all 10 books that I have read this year so far, what I think about them, the ratings. And then we're going to talk about some books that I'm excited to read this year, some new releases, some books that have been out for a while and have been on my radar. And we're just going to get our love of reading back because that is something that I am desperately missing. If I'm being honest with you guys, this year I am trying so hard to prioritize my own mental health instead of the mental health of everybody else around me, because that has been like my toxic trait for years, is that I care more about how other people feel than I care about how myself feels. So I have been trying so hard to dabble back into the things that I love, and I realized that when I was reading 7 to 9 books a month, I felt the best that I have ever felt. My mental health was amazing. The first book that I read this month was actually a reread, and it was a reread from like 10 years ago. I read it on my Kindle, and that was Beautiful Creatures by Cami Garcia. One of the goals I made for myself this year is that I promised I would force myself to read more fantasy books, specifically romantasy, because I just feel like if I read a book that is strictly fantasy and there is no like tension with like romance or anything like that, I won't be able to do it. I just won't. So I want to dabble in romantasy a little bit more. But personally, when I think about like fantasy that I feel like I would really get into and be able to enjoy, I think about like Twilight. Like, we all have to admit that Twilight is still a very iconic series, okay? I remembered reading Beautiful Creatures in high school, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna give that a chance because it reminded me so freaking much of Twilight. So basically in Beautiful Creatures we have Lena and then we have Ethan. Lena's like the new girl in town, and where they come from, it's a very small town. So when there is a new girl in town, everybody is gonna notice, and they're all gonna be all up in their business trying to figure out like, who are you, where'd you come from, what's your story. And right off the back, when Lena comes into town, it's almost like the kids at school, they can just sense that she's weird, they can sense that something is up with her, and so they're mean. Like, they are so mean to her. Like, right off the bat they are bullying her, but Ethan can sense that like there's something about her that he is just really drawn to. But while he can sense that, he also notices that anytime she's around and she gets frustrated, she gets angry, like weird things start to happen. And so as you're reading through this book, you start to unravel the history not only of this town but also of these two families, so of Ethan's families, Lena's families, and you're starting to realize that both of them play important parts into the secrets that are embedded into their community. If you've ever been to like Savannah, Georgia, it gave me very much so those vibes, like that historic southern gothic vibe. That is the exact vibe that this book gives. But overall, I did rate this book a 3 stars. It was a really enjoyable time, and it brought me back some nostalgia, so that was really nice. I don't think, however, that this book pulled me out of my book slump by any means, so that did suck. I have some serious beef with this next book. Frida, baby, what are we doing? This is The Crash by Frida McFadden, and I will cut her a little bit of slack because I did read somewhere that this is one of the first books that Frida ever wrote, and she's just not putting it out. It just wasn't as good as like The Housemaid or Never Lie, and I'll put it out there, I'll say it, The Teacher was better than this one, and I despised The Teacher. This book just felt so freaking repetitive that it was almost painful to force myself to get through it. So in this book, we are following our female main character. Her name is Tegan. She is 8 months pregnant. One day she decides that she is gonna get in her car during a blizzard, 8 months pregnant, and she is gonna drive 2 hours away to go and see her brother. Keep in mind, like I said, it is literally blizzarding outside. Like, it is snowing so bad. She's in this older car that's already beat up. The next thing you know, as it says, she crashes her car. The things that transpired after this crash happens, I just feel like could have been totally avoided. And I think the sad part about this book is there was moments where I was like, this could be such a good book. Like, the plot of it and the premise of it was so good, and it could have gave us such a good, just like dark thriller. Instead, I hated every single character in this book. There is not one person in this book that I was rooting for except for the unborn baby. Yeah, it just wasn't my favorite. I feel like so many things could have been done with this and they just weren't, and that sucks. Do I still love Frida? Yeah. Am I still excited for her May release? Absolutely. I will still be buying it. However, I was just kind of disappointed with this book, I won't lie. Overall, I rated it a 2.5 stars because, I mean, it was entertaining enough to get me to read it in one sitting. So, I mean, that something has to be said for that, you know? The next book I read was Out on a Limb by Hannah Bowman Young. So in this book, we are following our female main character, Winifred, or Win is her nickname. And basically, Miss Win goes out to this club one night and she meets this guy and things happen. And the next thing you know, she's pregnant. Now, that's not spoiling it because that is literally on the back of the book. The main trope in this book is accidental pregnancy. So, I mean, it's literally right there, so no spoilers here. So what I absolutely loved about this book is that I love like the representation that was in it. Like, I love the fact that both of the main characters had these disabilities with their bodies. So like, she had a small hand is how they describe it, and then he had a prosthetic leg, which I thought was so nice to see characters that you don't typically see in other books. I thought it was so nice to see that represented. Another thing I absolutely loved about this book is that it wasn't insta love. I understand that within the first few chapters she ends up pregnant with this man's baby, so I get that. That could seem like insta-lovey, but no, that's not at all how it was. I feel like for like 80% of the book, they were just friends trying to figure out like, how are we gonna co-parent, how are we gonna do this? And then the last 20% of the book is when you really get like that love story and you get to see that happen. And I ate that up. I cannot tell y'all how much I love a good slow burn. I love when a man yearns for a woman and like he doesn't get to have her right away because she's just like, like there is nothing I eat up more in this world than that, especially when it comes to a book. I cannot tell y'all how much I hate when I pick up a book and within like 4 chapters the female main character is like head over heels for the man already. No, I want the man to suffer. I want the man to want her so badly he cannot think about anything else. I just feel like it makes for such a good book. I also find that in books like that we get less spice, which I'm here for. I like more of an emotional connection than I do a physical connection. I feel like there wasn't that much spice in this book, which I really did enjoy. It was spicy though, it was spicy. So for my girlies who like spice, when it gets spicy, she gets spicy, but there's also some really beautiful emotional moments in this book that I just swooned over and I loved. I initially rated this book a 3.75, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and bump it up to a 4 stars because it was really good. I read this in one sitting. That is how much I freaking loved it. So that is when we go over into Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney. Listen, the only Alice Feeney book I had ever read before this one was Rock, Paper, Scissors, and I will be so honest when I say that that was one of my least favorite thrillers of 2024. It just didn't do it for me, which kind of made me sad because a lot of people said that Rock, Paper, Scissors was one of their favorite thriller books of the year. So I was almost hesitant to give her a second chance, but I was like, you know what? Alice Feeney is so many people's favorite thriller author that there has to be one book by her that I just love, and this was it. It was so freaking good, so unexpected. I will say that this is the kind of thriller where like you have to be set, you have to be taking notes, you have to be paying attention, or you will get very freaking confused because there are a couple of different point of views in this book, and then it's going from present day to past day. It's a lot, so you do need to sit and you do need to actually immerse yourself into this book. This definitely isn't just like a popcorn thriller that you could sit and just like like you actually have to think about what's going on, or by the end of the book you will be very freaking confused. But it was incredible. Rated it a 4 stars. Y'all know my drill on thrillers. I can't tell you basically anything, so just trust me when I say read the damn book. It is so good. This was my first 5-star read of the year and I was not expecting it. I had no clue at all that I was gonna love this book. I actually went into it thinking I was gonna absolutely hate it, but we have Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. Oh my freaking goodness. Remember at the start of this video when I said I wasn't a big fantasy girly? This made me a fantasy girly. This book was so damn good. Like, what did she put in this? What did she put in this? Because I read it in 2 days, first of all, which she's a little thick. Like, she's a thick book. So the fact that I read it in 2 days, especially when it was 2 days when I had a lot of stuff to do, but I still made the time to read it, that's how you freaking know that it was just so good. So this was my first 5-star read of the year. Everybody knows what Fourth Wing is about, but if you don't, basically we have our female main character. Her name is Violet, and she is going into her first year at a dragon riding academy. So actually being a dragon rider was not her first pick. She actually wanted to be a scribe, and basically scribes are kind of like people who kind of just, you know, record the history of the land. They work in the library, they work with books, which I love. I love whenever I'm reading a book and the character is a bookish person themselves. Like, they love books. I think that's so quirky and I just eat it up every single time. Basically, Violet wanted to be a scribe, but to make her mother happy, her mother is actually like the main person over the university, if I'm remembering correctly. Maybe she's just like one of the main like influential people like in the land. I can't remember exactly, but she has like a big role in all of this, and so to make her mother happy, she goes into the school to become a dragon rider. Listen, left, right, and center, there are people trying to unalive Miss Violet everywhere, and it's crazy. It is crazy. But once you get through like a certain amount of the schooling, that is when a dragon will pick you. A dragon will select you. If a dragon doesn't select you, then you have to kind of go back through this same process all over again the next year. And people were looking at Violet and they're like, there is no way that one of these dragons is gonna pick you. Like, you're inferior, you're not as good as us. I don't want to spoil it, but when I tell you, baby, Violet proved them wrong. That is for sure, okay? Oh my god, this book is incredible. I was on the edge of my seat, and the freaking cliffhanger at the end, are you kidding? I will be reading Iron Flame this month. I was gonna read it last month, but I did a lot of mood reading last month, and I just wasn't in the mood for like a thick, heavy fantasy, but I'm gonna force myself to read it this month because I need to know what happens next. I absolutely love this book. So I moved on to a new release, so I read First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. This is a dual point of view book with our main characters Aiden and Lucy. So Aiden is a radio host, and he does like a segment about love and relationships and advice and things like that. And then we have Miss Lucy Stone, who is a single mother, and basically one night her daughter calls into this radio show looking for dating advice for her mom. The one important thing to acknowledge about this book is that Lucy was actually a teenage mom. So her and her daughter are really like best friends. Like, they grew up together, they're best friends. And I also really love the co-parenting dynamic that's in this book, because you have Lucy obviously, and then you have her baby daddy, who is also one of her best friends, and her baby daddy also has a husband, and the three of them just co-parent so beautifully and in such a healthy way that I feel like they are just raising their little girl to be like the best human possible. So seeing the relationship between Lucy and the daughter, it was just so freaking sweet. I loved it. And so her daughter calls into this radio show just looking for dating advice. Basically, she's just worried that her mother isn't doing everything to make herself happy, and it just so happens that Lucy catches her on this phone call, and what ends up transpiring is basically Lucy gets her own little segment on this radio show with Aiden, and the love story goes from there. I won't say anything else because obviously I don't want to ruin it, but this book was just so freaking cute. It was so funny. Like, there was parts where I was laughing out loud, like loud. It was so freaking funny. But there were also parts that I feel like were very emotional, and there were some really good quotes in this book and life lessons. My only gripe with this book is that there were times where like Aiden just felt so emotionally unavailable, and it was so unattractive because they are in their early 30s, and it's like, okay, grow up, like address your feelings like an adult and figure out how you feel and what you want. I do think that was the only part that kind of gave me the ick, because for the most part I did like his character, but he did give me the ick at times. But I did rate this book a 4.5. I really enjoyed it, and I've seen such mixed opinions about this book. Like, either you love it or you hate it, and so many people I have seen have hated it, but not me. I loved it. Monica Arya does it again. Monica Arya is always gonna be that girl. The next book I read was Navy Lies by Monica Arya. And I'd say that Miss Monica is one of my new favorite thriller authors. First book I ever read by her, I read last fall. It was The Favorite Girl, which is for sure like her biggest book. However, I feel like all of her books should have just as much hype as The Favorite Girl. When I tell y'all, I feel like in the next year or two, she is gonna have her freedom moment where everyone is talking about how good her books are and they're also bingeable. Like, she freaking deserves that and then some. So in Navy Lies, we follow around this woman named Navy, and from the very get, for me personally, it was obvious that Navy was going through some things psychologically that were just messing her up with things that she went through in her past. Y'all, when I say Navy is on a revenge tour, she is on a revenge tour. She has been plotting, she has been planning, she has been scheming, and she is going to get back at everybody that has ever hurt her, who has ever took from her, especially the most important things. She's coming for those people. I say there were so many points in this book that just made my jaw drop open, because I was like, what? Excuse me? Like, especially some of the freaking twists at the end of the book. Oh my gosh. This is really a thriller where I really cannot tell you a thing, because this is one that you want to go into blind. But what I will say is, if you are someone who has triggers, please check the triggers. There are quite a few in here. But I read this, y'all, in 3 hours. That is not an exaggeration. I read this in 3 hours. I did not want this book to be over, and I was like, I rated her a 4.5. That is how much I thoroughly enjoyed it. Next was another new release. This is Junie by Erin Crosby Eckstein. Y'all, this is her debut novel. And if this is her debut novel, I would love to see in like 5 years, when she has like, you know, more years under her belt, I cannot wait to see what her writing looks like then, because this is crazy. But I was mesmerized. When I say I was mesmerized by this book, I was mesmerized by this freaking book. We are following along with 16-year-old Junie. She is an enslaved girl, and she has been enslaved since she was born. So this book starts out right on the cusp of the Civil War. But in this book, this is basically like a coming of age book where you're kind of seeing Junie realize really what's going on in the world around her. So with the family that owns her and her family, they also have a 16-year-old daughter, and in Junie's mind, her and the daughter have always kind of been like best friends. That's how she sees it. But as she's growing up and she's really thinking about the dynamics and the way that things work, she realizes, hey, maybe this is not someone that's actually my friend. Maybe this is kind of someone who benefits off of like me being who I am, and we're not equal. And just watching the thought process and watching everything that transpires in this book leading up to the very last pages was heartbreaking. There are so many times during this book where I cried. There's a lot of history in this book, and there was a lot of things I learned that really disgusted me that I didn't know, because in the American education system, they just don't teach some of the really important things that this book talked about. And there were times where I bawled my eyes out. I was very disturbed, and I think that that is part of what made this book so powerful. Already such a powerful topic, but then when you add in things that actually have happened and you see the way that the story unfolds, it honestly makes your heart ache, but in the best way possible. There's also a little bit of romance in this book, which kind of adds to the lightness of it, but then it also adds to the heartbreak once everything is said and done. But this was a 5-star. This was incredible, and this is a book that I think everybody should read. I will definitely be picking up other books by Erin if she releases more, because I just feel like this one was one that I needed, and I can't wait to see what else she has to say. Moving on to a book that wasn't as good. This is Make a Scene by Mimi Grace, and I am so sad that I did not enjoy this book. So this book is about our female main character, Rita, and she is a girl that owns a bakery, which I loved. That part sucked me in because I love baking, I love cooking. Anybody that knows me knows that those are two of my favorite things. So I was like, okay, I am really gonna enjoy this. Plus, look at how cute the freaking cover is. Like, the cover is so freaking cute. But basically, Rita's cousin is getting married to Rita's ex-boyfriend, which in itself is a whole shit show, okay? So Rita needs to find someone to bring to the wedding as her +1, just to prove to her family, like, hey, I'm doing good, I'm doing fine, like, everything's good over here. So she ends up meeting this man. His name is Duncan. He works at the gym that is next door to her bakery, and basically what transpires is they end up fake dating, which in itself sounds like such a good plot, such a good setup for a book. However, for me, this book lacked any emotional connection, which I understand it's fake dating, but it's fake dating that turns into actual dating. So I would have liked to see more of like an emotional connection. I feel like this one was strictly physical, and there were lots of moments in this book where my skin felt icky and I was like, oh my god, I have the ick, because there was just things that were said and done that I was like, please make it stop. Which really sucks because I really wanted to like it. But listen, if you were a girly who like you read because you love spice, which I know there are so many people that are like that, this is the book for you. Pick it up. This was a good time on a Friday night while you're laying in bed with a glass of wine and you just need something easy and laid back to read. Pick it up. It'll be a good time. But if you're somebody like me who reads for the plot, reads for like the emotional connection, likes a little bit more of like a build up before we get to any of the physical stuff, I don't think this would be for you. But if you're just looking for a fun, easy, go lucky time, this is a good book. For me personally, I rated it a 2.5 stars. The final book, and I could scream, cry, and throw up because oh my freaking goodness. Oh my god. Oh my freaking goodness. Oh my gosh. This is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. Oh my god, this book was so freaking incredible. Anyone who is in the Hunger Games world, anyone who knows anything about the Hunger Games, you know that we have been waiting years and years, literally over a decade, for this book, and it is finally here. This is Haymitch's book. This is about Haymitch's games. This is about Haymitch's life and how he came to be who he is. If you know anything about the Hunger Games, you know that before Katniss and Peeta, Haymitch was the lone victor, or so we thought until we learned about Lucy Gray in the last book. But Haymitch was like the lone surviving victor in District 12. But if you know anything else about Haymitch, you know that he is also a raging drunk. He is a grumpy man. Like, there's a lot of things that go on with Haymitch. And so for years I always wondered, besides the obvious, besides the fact that he went to the Hunger Games and he saw really traumatic, really messed up things, why is Haymitch the way that he is? Oh my gosh, this book spelt it out perfectly. This book was so heartbreakingly good. Like, it was so good, but to the point to where like my heart was so broken for him, and to see everything that he went through, and to see everything and everybody that he lost and everything that he had to do to get to where he was. This book was by far the most graphic and disturbing one yet. So I kind of wonder when it comes to like the movies how they're gonna pull this off, because if you know, then you know that usually the movies for the Hunger Games are very PG-13. Crazy to say, because they're literally movies about children being killed in the arena, or like killing each other in the arena. So it is a little strange that they are so PG-13, but this one really went there. This one was dark, this one was gruesome, this one was very, very, very graphic in the way that things were described. So I am very curious how they're going to pull that off without taking away from the impact that the different scenes had, because I want the scenes to still be impactful. That's the thing. Like, I almost don't want the movie, because I don't want them to fumble the bag, and I don't want them to take away from the impact of the story and everything that really happened. So I'm honestly kind of nervous to see what they do. But if you do anything else this month, if you have not read this book, please add this to the books that you need to read. 5 stars, obviously. Now we're going to talk about just a couple of books that I am really excited for this year that are new releases. This isn't every new release that I want to read. These are just the ones that are on the top of my radar that I cannot stop thinking about, and I need them to come out like right now. I'm going to start with The Perfect Divorce by Geneva Rose, because I am actually rereading The Perfect Marriage right now, anticipation for this release. With the way The Perfect Marriage ended, I am just really curious about what we're going to get into with The Perfect Divorce. Like, how is she going to spin this so that we can have a second book? I just personally feel like The Perfect Marriage, like, it was at such a great stopping point that we almost didn't need The Perfect Divorce. However, I will gladly read The Perfect Divorce, because right now, like I said, I am reading The Perfect Marriage just to kind of like refresh my brain, and I forgot how much I freaking love this book. The next book I am super excited for is Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. This is a fun fact that everybody is going to think is crazy, but I have only ever read one Emily Henry book. I do have 3 others that are on my shelf, a part of my TBR, but I have only ever read Happy Place, and it was quite literally one of my favorite reads of 2024. I just felt so closely connected with those characters, and I feel like that book taught me so many valuable life lessons. And so I am super duper excited to read this book. I do still want to dive into some of Emily Henry's other releases. Like, I think the next one I'm going to read by her is going to be Funny Story. But yeah, if this new book is anything like Happy Place, then I'll probably absolutely love it. I just feel like Emily Henry has like such a beautiful way of writing and like wording things that I feel like I really am going to be set and ready to hear anything that she has to say. Another one I am so excited about, and it'll actually be here tomorrow, so I'll probably have it read by the weekend, but it is Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. If you know anything about me, you know that I am one of Abby Jimenez's biggest fans. Like, I love her with my whole heart. I love that woman. I love her writing. I love the things that she has to say. Like, her stories are so captivating. Her characters feel so real and fleshed out. And so I am so excited for this book. The only thing I am nervous about is that everybody that I have seen that has gotten an ARC says that it was like a 3 stars for them. And so I am so nervous to have such high expectations and be let down. But reading is so subjective. So just because somebody else thinks that it's like a 3 stars, that doesn't mean that I'll think it's a 3 stars. Knowing me, I'll probably think it's a 5 stars. I am so excited to see what this book is about and how these characters feel to me. Like I said earlier, Monica Aria is coming out with the sequel for The Favorite Girl, so she is coming out with The Caged Girl. I follow her on all of her socials, so I have been seeing like all of the PR that she's doing around this book, and she says that it is the darkest book that she has written so far, like not even comparable to her other books. And personally, I think that all of her books are super dark, so I'm like, how much darker could it get? And listen, I'm all in. I love a good dark thriller. That is my favorite type of read, so I am all in. I am ready. I am set. Another really highly anticipated read for me is Can't Get Enough by Kennedy Ryan. I think this will be the 3rd and final book in her Skyland series, which I cannot wait, y'all. I have been waiting so long for this freaking book. I'm going to eat this up. This is Hendrix's book, and I've just wanted to know more about her since the first book. Like, she by far in that friendship group, she is the character that intrigues me the most, and I just want to get into her life, because if I can remember, she is supposed to be like an executive producer for one of the biggest reality TV shows in Atlanta, and I want to know like what her lifestyle is like. I want to see her fall in love. I want to see her live this life that, like, I don't even know know if she ever thought she was gonna live. Like, I want to see what happens. So I am so excited, so intrigued by this book. One thing I love about Kennedy Ryan is that her books, they are romance books. However, they feel more like women's fiction because it's not like, the romance is almost like the subplot, whereas like the self-discovery of these characters, that is the main plot. And so I am so freaking, I'm set. I'm excited, I'm set, and the weekend that it comes out, I'm clearing my schedule. Nobody better ask me to go anywhere because I am just gonna sit that whole weekend and finish the freaking book. And the final book that's kind of like on my radar that I'm really excited about is The Tenant by Frida McFadden. Again, any book that Frida writes, I'm gonna pick it up. And this one I actually have had on my want to read on my Goodreads since December when I saw that she was putting it out. It won't come out until next month, so there is just a little bit more time to wait for it, but I did already pre-order it because I want it as soon as it releases. I need to read it. I really do. But those are all the books that I read so far this year and all the books that I am most excited to read this year. If you guys enjoyed this video, let me know down below what your favorite book that you've read this year has been, or like what new release you are most anticipating. I love when you guys recommend books to me and put new things on my radar, because had y'all not told me that Fourth Wing was so good and I needed to give it a chance, I wouldn't have. And I did, and it became one of my favorite books I've ever read. So thank y'all so much for that. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys on my next video. Bye guys.